If you wake up feeling a weight you can't explain, as if something is pulling you down right at the start of the day, then this video is for you. What you will discover here has the power to turn your life upside down. And that's no exaggeration. There is a specific, powerful prayer that when said early in the morning, completely changes the course of your day. And it's not just any prayer, it's the Psalm 35. This psalm is like an invisible shield, a spiritual weapon that David used when he was persecuted, attacked, betrayed, and you can use it too. You know that feeling that people are jealous of you, that they're talking behind your back, that something is holding you back. So, reciting Psalm 35 in the morning is like declare war on all this. It's like bring spiritual and emotional enemies to their knees, right at the beginning of the day. And you don't need to be a practicing religious person or understand the Bible to apply this. What you need is courage to stand up, declare this word, with faith, and see what happens in the next 24 hours. In this video, you will understand why this psalm has so much power, how to use it the right way, and what great spiritual leaders like Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught about strategic morning prayer. If you're tired of being hit by life without understanding where the blows come from, it's time to turn things around. Stay until the end and recite with me. You'll feel it firsthand. Now that you understand how Psalm 35 can shield your day and overturn everything that silently haunts you, it becomes clear why so much was stuck in your life. This knowledge has the real power to change your routine, your mindset, and even your results. And since it truly helped you, it makes sense to spread this transformation. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. This shows that you value what you learned and want to continue receiving content that gets straight to the point, with impact and purpose. The next word may be even stronger. You deserve to experience this new level. Have you ever noticed how there are days when everything seems to go wrong from the moment you wake up? It seems like your alarm clock is already ringing, irritating you. You wake up late, spill your coffee, fight in traffic, arrive at work with your heart racing, and before you know it, it's barely past 10 a.m., and you're already exhausted, tense, and feeling like something is wrong. Now answer me honestly. How many times have you started the day connecting with God, asking for guidance, protection, and strength before facing the world? Well, many people don't even realize it, but they start the day vulnerable, open to all kinds of attacks, negative thoughts, provocations, pressure, and spiritual burdens. And the worst part, they think this is normal, but it's not. What's missing is armor. It's spiritual covering, and that's exactly where Psalm 35 comes in. This psalm isn't just a beautiful passage from the Bible, it's a cry for help. It's a prayer from David when he was surrounded by enemies, unjustly persecuted, betrayed, slandered, attacked from all sides. Sound familiar? Because today, even without swords and wars like in the past, we live surrounded by similar situations. There are people who smile at you, but deep down they want to see you fall. There are environments you enter and feel the weight. There are words you hear that stick in your mind and poison the rest of your day. And worst of all, there are struggles that aren't even visible, but they drain your energy, steal your joy, and put your life on hold without you understanding why. Reciting Psalm 35 in the morning is like putting on armor before battle. It's starting the day saying, "Today the Lord is the one who fights for me. Today whoever rises against me will fall because I am covered." And when you do this with faith, with intention, the environment changes. The atmosphere around you changes. It's not magic, it's spiritual positioning. It's you accepting that your life can no longer be lived improvised on autopilot. It's you deciding that enough is enough of waking up defeated. No more running around looking for fixes. From now on, you'll start building your day before it runs you over. And don't think it needs to be a long or formal prayer. It can be right there, still in your pajamas, before your shower with your eyes half closed. But speak with authority. Declare this psalm as if you understand you're speaking to heaven and facing hell at the same time. Because that's what happens. When you pray Psalm 35 in the morning, you're declaring that your life, your family, your work, your mind, and your spirit are under God's care. And that disarms the enemy. It closes gaps. It changes the course of your day. You know what's most curious? People often try everything. Therapy, meditation, Reiki, counseling, motivational videos, and still feel the same emptiness, the same heaviness, the same confusion. And there's nothing wrong with seeking help, of course. But there's a key that almost no one turns: the power of morning prayer with the Word of God. And when this key is turned with faith, supernatural things begin to happen. Doors open without explanation. People who persecuted you disappear. That anxiety that dominated you loses its power. It's as if the chaos around you still exists, but no longer affects you in the same way. And that, my friend, is liberating. And look, let me tell you something. This practice changed my life. I'm not saying it turned into a fairy tale, but I've never been the same since I started praying Psalm 35 in the morning. The way I face challenges has changed. The way people treat me has changed. Even the thoughts that once consumed me have lost their power. And I know you can experience this too. So answer me here in the comments. Have you ever prayed this psalm in the morning? Write the word here: armored. If you want to start this journey with me today, I read everything you write. And this is more than a video. It's a community of transformation. There's an important detail that no one talks about. Many people do pray, but they pray the wrong way. They pray with fear, with doubt, as if they were just reciting words that don't reach the heavens. But when you understand that there is spiritual authority in your voice, that when you declare with faith, it becomes real in the invisible world, everything changes. This is the point that leaders like Dr. David Yonggi Cho have always taught. Prayer needs to be done with conviction, with direction, with intention. It's not about shouting or memorizing words. It's about knowing you're speaking to a God who acts, who listens, who responds. And that makes all the difference. Maybe you're thinking, but I don't even know how to pray properly. And I tell you, it's okay. Start simple. Start sincerely. Start by praying Psalm 35 in your own way, with your words, with your emotions, with your pain, with your truth. God doesn't look for perfect prayer. He looks for an open heart. And the more you practice, the more your faith grows, the more sensitive you become to His presence, and the more authority you have to face any battle that comes your way. The truth is, the spiritual world doesn't wait for you to be ready to attack. It attacks even when you're tired, distracted, and unprepared. And that's why you need to be one step ahead. Praying in the morning is like turning on a light in a dark room. It's you saying, "Here the light is in charge. Here the Spirit of God rules the day." And this simple decision made consistently has the power to change your routine, your home, your relationships, and even your emotional health. Sounds like an exaggeration? Try it for yourself and let me know. You'll be surprised. And before we move on to the next point, there's one thing that needs to be clear. Praying Psalm 35 in the morning doesn't mean you won't have problems. It means you won't face them the same way again. And that's the key to turning the table. You understand that starting the day with Psalm 35 changes everything, right? Now it's time to go a step further and understand why this psalm has so much weight and power when we're dealing with injustice, persecution, and silent attacks. Because let's be honest, there are times in life when it feels like the world is against you. And it doesn't have to be blatant. Sometimes it's that awkward atmosphere at work, that sidelong glance, that comment, disguised as a joke, that strange energy you feel when you enter a room. You can't explain it, but you can feel it. And what Psalm 35 does is name these situations, and more than that, present these invisible battles before a God who fights for justice. David didn't write this psalm just because he was hurt or feeling rejected. He wrote it because he was being attacked by people who hated him for no reason, people who plotted behind his back, who set traps, who wanted to see his downfall. And what did he do? Complain, swear, fight back? No, he prayed. But it wasn't just any prayer, it was a prayer of confrontation, of positioning. He didn't ask for a hug from God. He asked God to act, to stand up as judge, to unmask those who feigned friendship, to confound those who plotted evil. In other words, he didn't remain silent. He surrendered everything to God, but he did it actively with authority. And look, there's something no one likes to admit, but it needs to be said. There are times when you're being attacked and you don't even realize it. People who claim to support you are sabotaging you. People who praise you to your face destroy you behind your back, and you feel the weight of it in your body, in your emotions, in your performance. Nothing flows, nothing moves. You feel exhausted and you don't even know why. Then you start to doubt yourself, feel insecure, freeze, and all of this builds up. Now imagine starting the day praying Psalm 35, which is precisely a prayer against this type of situation, and surrender each of these attacks to God's justice. It's like turning an invisible key. What was hidden begins to be revealed. What was blocked begins to flow. And the best part, you don't have to exhaust yourself trying to justify or defend yourself. God does it for you. David's prayer is direct, straightforward. He says, "Fight, Lord, against those who fight against me. Fight against those who fight against me." In other words, he acknowledges that there is a war, but that he doesn't need to fight it alone. And perhaps that's what's missing in your life today. You're trying to solve everything on your own, with your own strength, and you're wearing yourself out. You want to explain, justify, defend yourself, handle everything. But there are battles that aren't for you to fight. It is for God to take over. And when you declare this in the morning, with faith, with surrender, with sincerity, the sky moves. Now let me ask you something. How many times have you felt wronged and swallowed hard? How many times have you heard something that hurt you and had to smile on the outside while bleeding on the inside? How many times have you tried to keep the peace, but deep down you felt defeated, small, alone? Comment here. Justice. If you've ever been through this, this is more than a video. It's a space where we connect through truth, because everyone who truly carries light will sooner or later be attacked by those who walk in darkness. And you might think, but what will prayer solve? The point is, prayer isn't an escape. It's an act of war. When you pray Psalm 35, you're not hiding from the problem. You're transferring the cause to the one who can truly solve it. You're saying, "Lord, here it is. I can't carry this anymore. Take it into your hands and bring justice." And he does. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it takes time, but it always happens. Because God is just. He doesn't sleep. He sees what you endure in silence. He knows the intentions of each person's heart, and he acts. But to do so, you need to speak. You need to declare. You need to deliver. And Psalm 35 is the right tool for that. The most striking thing is that many people read this psalm as if it were a beautiful outburst, but it's a manual for how to react to life's injustices. It shows that you can be attacked, betrayed, manipulated, and still maintain your dignity, faith, and hope. Because those who stand before God see him stand before the world, and that changes everything. Now, do you know what happens to those who start praying like this every day? You start to see people walking away, situations unfolding, doors closing, and it seems bad at first, but then you understand it was deliverance, that God was clearing the way, that what you thought was rejection was actually protection. And when that sinks in, you start to be thankful even for the no's, even the losses, even the separations. Because God takes away, but he always replaces it with something better. But there is a detail in Psalm 35 that almost no one notices, and that makes all the difference. But there's a detail in Psalm 35 that almost no one notices, and that makes all the difference. David doesn't just pray for protection. He prays as someone who is already in the middle of the war. He's not trying to avoid the problem. He's within the problem, feeling the pressure, the anguish, the injustice, the betrayal firsthand. And yet, he doesn't lose focus. He doesn't try to take matters into his own hands. He doesn't plot revenge. He cries out. He takes a stand. And more than that, he recognizes that spiritual warfare is real and that there are things that only God can do. This is what makes this psalm so powerful for those who are facing attacks that no one sees. And then we get to a part that many people ignore. Spiritual warfare exists, and you may be in the middle of it without even realizing it. Have you ever felt drained inside, even after a full night's sleep? Have you ever had days when you woke up feeling well and out of nowhere felt anxious, heavy, irritable for no reason? Have you ever felt like everything was going well and suddenly a sequence of negative events hits that simply destabilize you? This is no coincidence, this is an attack. But because it's invisible, there's no blood, there's no noise, many people ignore it. And so they continue to suffer, stuck, with their lives at a standstill. And you know what's even more shocking? There are people who live like this for years, thinking it's normal. They wake up every day like they're going to the slaughterhouse. They wake up tired, discouraged, without purpose. And worse, they start to think it's their fault, that they're unlucky, that God forgot, that their life will never get better. But it's nothing like that. What's missing is spiritual awareness. It's understanding that there's a war going on behind the scenes in your life, and that you need to enter it armed with the right weapons. And Psalm 35 is one of those weapons. When you start praying this psalm every day, especially first thing in the morning, you change your stance. You stop being the helpless target and become the positioned warrior, and that changes everything. What David does in this psalm is an act of courage. He cries out to God, but he doesn't hide his pain. He speaks of suffering, of traps, of false friendships, of fake smiles, of disguised evil. He shows us that all of this exists, and that the right way to deal with it is not to ignore it nor to retaliate, but to surrender everything into the hands of a God who sees what no one else sees. And this needs to be applied to your life now, because perhaps you're trying to maintain control, trying to appear strong, trying to handle everything while inside you're crumbling. And let me tell you, you don't have to face this alone. Psalm 35 is for moments like this. And there's more. When you pray with truth, God responds with deliverance. But it's not just any deliverance. It's the kind of answer you feel in your skin, the kind of peace that invades without explanation. That feeling of everything is okay, even if it's still messed up. Have you ever felt this? Comment here. Warrior. If you're in this fight and are ready to take your stand in prayer, I'm reading every comment and praying with you in this battle. This is a real space. We feel together, learn together, and win together. Now, a point that many people forget. Prayer is not a shield to escape from problems. It's the strength to pass through it without being destroyed. And that makes all the difference, because some people think that prayer is synonymous with a life without pain, without attacks, without struggle. It's not. Praying Psalm 35 is like raising your sword early in the morning and saying, I know there's going to be a war today, but I've already started winning because I'm not alone. And this changes the way you react to pressure, to looks, to unkind, words, to unexpected situations. You stop being reactive and become strategic. You move from improvisation to spiritual control of your own story. And you know what? When you truly pray, the attacks don't stop, but they lose strength. Because those who attack you feel they can no longer reach you. The enemy tries but is frustrated, because your spirit has already awakened, armed, standing, shielded. And little by little, people notice. They change the way they look at you. Some move away, others move closer. The environment changes. The atmosphere changes, and it all started because you decided to say a prayer that no one sees, but that moves everything around it. And there is a powerful detail in this psalm that almost no one notices. David doesn't just ask for help, he declares what will happen. He says, Let those who plot against me be put to shame. Let them be like chaff before the wind. He uses his mouth to anticipate deliverance. And this is very powerful, because it's a teaching that appears several times in the Bible. What you declare in faith, God transforms into reality. Prayer must have prophetic words. It must have authority. It must have conviction. And Psalm 35 teaches exactly this. You don't pray just to vent. You pray to move heaven, to put the spiritual world on alert, to make justice happen even when you have neither the strength nor the argument to defend yourself. And that's the key. Whoever prays first wins later. But for that, there is one thing you need to understand before continuing. There's something no one told you, but you need to understand now. Your mouth has power, and the way you start your day determines the kind of energy, direction, and even war that will rise up against you. Most people start the day on autopilot, repeating negative thoughts, muttering about what they don't have, complaining about what went wrong yesterday. And without realizing it, they themselves are spiritually authorizing the day to be heavy, blocked, full of confusion. Now think with me. If your own word has this power, imagine when you put God's word in your mouth first thing in the morning. Imagine when you wake up and declare, Lord, fight against those who fight against me. Lift up your shield and come fight for me. This is not just prayer. This is spiritual authority released early in the day. When you recite Psalm 35 in the morning, out loud, with faith, you are activating a force that will guide your path. It's like sowing invisible seeds that will produce deliverance, protection, balance, and peace throughout the day. You don't need to understand everything, nor see the spiritual world with your natural eyes, but you do need to know that everything you declare with faith generates movement. It's like turning on an invisible defense system. The traps that were being set for you begin to be dismantled. The people who were approaching you with bad intentions become confused. The situations that seem to be dragging you down begin to lose their strength, and the most powerful, you feel it, it's real. Psalm 35 speaks of hidden enemies, of people who plot without reason, of hidden traps. This isn't just about physical wars. It's about deceitful people, tense environments, malicious words, negative thoughts that try to paralyze you. When you begin to pray with clarity and intentionality, as David did, you are saying, I know there is war, but I also know who defends me. And that's enough. You don't need to have all the answers, nor win arguments, nor prove anything to anyone. You just need to be spiritually positioned. And that's what this prayer gives you. Now pay attention to this. Every day when you wake up, there are traps being set. Things you can't even imagine. A mean comment, a provocative look, a message that stirs your emotions, a phone call that destabilizes you, a disguised invitation that can lead you away from God. And if you leave home without protection, you become vulnerable. But when you start the day, saying, Lord, be my shield, reject the nets they have set for me, cast confusion upon those who wish me harm, something happens. You feel the mood shift, the conversations change, the answers arrive. What seemed to be against you loses its effect. And best of all, you begin to live in peace, a peace that comes from knowing that you are not walking alone. How many times have you found yourself in seemingly minor situations that suddenly turned into a storm? How many times have you entered a place and left feeling heavy, confused, and unsure of why? And worse, how many of these situations could have been avoided if you had started the day with spiritual protection activated? Comment here. Shield. If you've ever noticed this happening in your life, sometimes we even think it's a coincidence, that it's just a bad day. But in reality, it's spiritual traps that were set up, and you fell because you left home unprotected. And look, there's no point in thinking this is an exaggeration or fanaticism. It's real, and you feel it. Your mind feels it. Your body feels it. You start to get more tired, more irritable, more emotionally vulnerable. And before you know it, you're reacting badly, making rash decisions, opening doors that will later be difficult to close. All of this because you didn't prepare yourself spiritually beforehand. But once you understand this, you will no longer accept starting the day without declaring protection, without activating authority, without putting God first. There's something powerful about talking to God early in the morning. It's like an alignment. It's you saying, today I don't just depend on my strength, my money, my contacts. Today it's me and the Lord who lead the way. And when you enter this state, even problems come differently, even conflicts lose their power. You'll still face challenges, of course, but you will no longer feel alone or lost within them, because now you know you have a firm foundation. And there's a part of Psalm 35 that really resonates with me. When David says that the enemy set traps, but they themselves fell into them, that's incredibly powerful, because it's not you who needs revenge, to prove anything, to counter gossip, to argue. No, it's God who turns the tables. It's He who allows the evil they plotted against you to happen. Go back against whoever set it up. But this doesn't happen out of nowhere. It happens when you are in covenant with Him, when you talk to Him in the morning, when you pray even without understanding everything, when you recognize that your voice carries weight in the spiritual world. From the moment you begin praying Psalm 35 every day, even if simply, but with faith, you will notice things changing around you. And sometimes it will seem like the world is getting stranger, but in reality it's you who will be more sensitive. You will perceive intentions. You will sense the environment. You will be able to discern what is right and what is a trap, because prayer tunes you spiritually, and this sensitivity will save you from many things. Situations you once fell into without realizing it, you will now recognize from afar. People who once manipulated you will no longer be able to, because your spirit will be awakened. But there's another part of this process that most people overlook, something that happens after you start praying this psalm frequently, and that few are prepared to deal with. And that's when many people start praying Psalm 35. They start to see change. They start to feel lightness, peace, clarity. But suddenly there comes a blow. Things that were seemingly calm start to change. People close to you start to distance themselves. Others reveal themselves. The atmosphere changes. And then you think, hey, I started praying and things got worse, and that's when many people give up, because they don't understand what's happening. But I'll explain it to you now, and it might save you from stopping halfway. When you begin to pray, with authority, the spiritual world moves. You're not just reciting a psalm, You're awakening your spiritual consciousness, activating God's presence in your routine, and, at the same time, disturbing everything that previously fed on your vulnerability. What was camouflaged begins to be exposed. Those people who were by your side out of self-interest, those situations you thought were normal but were actually draining you, everything begins to surface. It's what we call energetic imbalance. And this isn't mystical talk, no, it's real and you feel it. Let me give you a practical example. You know, when you're trying to improve your life, start taking care of your health, your mind, your faith, and suddenly it seems like the people around you start to get annoyed. Some even make fun of you, treat you differently, as if you've tried to change too much. This happens because your transformation affects the comfort of others, and in the spiritual world it's the same. When you begin to pray, your light begins to shine brighter, and this destabilizes everything that was previously settled in darkness. And you know what happens? People close to you, but who don't have the spiritual structure to walk this new level, start to pull away. Sometimes with arguments, sometimes out of the blue. It hurts, of course, but it's necessary. It's God clearing the field. And this also applies to situations, environments, and opportunities that seemed good, but were sapping your energy, your clarity, your strength from the inside out. Everything that doesn't fit with this new atmosphere you're creating through prayer will begin to dissolve. And the more you connect with this practice, the more sensitive you become. You'll notice that certain places start to give you a headache. Certain conversations start to bother you. Certain company no longer makes sense. And that's normal. It's your frequency rising, and not everyone will follow suit. Maybe you're already experiencing this and didn't even know what it was. That feeling of no longer fitting in certain places, that discomfort in environments that were once nice, that heavy energy after certain conversations, that desire to remain silent, to protect yourself, to be more selective about who you share your life with. This isn't a whim. This is your spirit becoming cleaner, more connected to God, more discerning about what enters and what stays around you. And those who don't understand this will say, "You're weird, isolated, distant," but you know what you're feeling, and that's enough. Comment the word here, lightness. If you've ever noticed this kind of change happening to you, some people think it's loneliness, weakness, but in reality, it's a spiritual filter being activated. You no longer have time or energy for anything. And this is a sign of maturity, of growth, of advancement, because to continue with a true prayer life, you need to protect your peace. And you can't maintain that same peace if you continue to expose yourself to people and situations that live on the frequency of gossip, criticism, envy, and manipulation. But there is one detail here that is very important. All this requires vigilance, because while your light bothers others, it also attracts them. And not everyone who approaches you after you start praying is coming with good intentions. Sometimes your clean energy, your radiance, your spiritual strength begins to be seen as something attractive to empty, heavy, unbalanced people. And then you need to be wise, because otherwise you might end up giving space to someone who will try to suck away everything you took time to build. And this is more common than it seems. Therefore, praying Psalm 35 every day is not just a spiritual practice, it is a constant protection. It's like saying, "Lord, may everything that tries to approach me today without your permission fall to the ground. May no false alliance prosper. May no opposing energy have space in my home, in my mind, in my heart." And this prayer, when said with faith, has a practical effect. It makes you more alert, more selective, more at peace. And that, my friend, is freedom. But there's something else going on behind all this, a kind of discomfort that can arise even when you're doing everything right. And then something happens that many people don't know how to deal with. You're doing everything right. You're praying, you're connecting with God, you're feeling lighter, more at peace. But suddenly it hits you, a strange emptiness. It seems that even though you pray every day, even though you have more clarity, more protection, you still feel alone, as if no one understands you, as if you're out of place. And then comes that doubt. Is there something wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong. What's happening is that you've entered a new spiritual level, and this new level demands deeper connections. You can no longer maintain shallow relationships, empty conversations, or companies that only drag you down. Now you sense when something is forced. You see when the intention is not pure. and this isolates you. But this isolation isn't punishment. It's a filter. It's God removing the excess. It's as if He's telling you, now that you understand the power of prayer, the importance of spiritual armor, you need to surround yourself with those who strengthen you, not those who drain you. And this is where many people give up, because longing speaks loudly. Neediness hits. The desire to return to what was comfortable appears. But let me remind you, you were not called to live in the shallows. You've been called to something greater, and that's why the process is uncomfortable, because now you feel the difference between being accompanied and being connected. Before, any group would do. Anyone would fill the space. Not anymore. You want true presence, purposeful words, an exchange that builds. And that's rare. That's why, at this new level, you will need patience to find the right connections. Meanwhile, God strengthens you alone. He teaches you to rely on Him, to nourish yourself with His presence, to find pleasure in being silent with Him. It may seem lonely, but it's during this time that you grow, that you mature, that you become stronger. And don't think it's something exclusive to you. Anyone who decides to level up will always go through a period of pruning, because you can't carry everyone along. Some people don't have the structure to walk with you in the new era. And that's okay. It's not about rejecting anyone. It's about preserving your peace. It's about protecting the atmosphere you've built with so much effort. It's about understanding that whoever doesn't respect your growth isn't prepared to participate in your victory. And that is maturity. Perhaps you're feeling this discomfort now. The prayers are working. You're no longer carried away by any energy. You recognize when the atmosphere is heavy, but it still feels like something is missing. It seems like there's still a part of your heart that craves company. And this is natural. We are relational beings. We need exchange, presence, people who truly see us. And the beauty of it all is that God knows, and He prepares. He sends. At the right time, the right connections arrive. People who won't drain you, but rather add to you. People who pray with you, who understand you without you needing to explain, who carry the same spiritual frequency. Comment the word, "Hear true." If you've ever felt that emptiness in the middle of your faith journey, even though you're doing everything right, this isn't weakness. It's proof that your spirit is maturing. You're learning to live with purpose. And this scares those who live on autopilot. But it also attracts what is genuine, profound, and transformative. And there's one more thing that happens in this process. God begins to use your solitude to reveal things that you would only understand in silence. It's in silence that you hear Him most clearly. It's in silence that you understand the reason for things that once seemed unfair. It's in silence that you realize that what seemed like a loss was actually a deliverance. And then everything starts to make sense. You look back and realize that if certain people were still in your life, you would have fallen already. That if certain doors hadn't closed, you would be trapped in cycles that should have ended already. And that, my friend, is liberating. Now that you understand the power of reciting Psalm 35 in the morning, it becomes clearer why so much in your life was stuck, without explanation. You've seen how change begins in the invisible, how spiritual protection directly impacts your mind, your day, and your relationships. And if this helped you see what was behind the fatigue, the confusion, the feeling of heaviness, then it makes sense to give back. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. It shows that you value what you learned here and want to continue walking with those who speak your language, with those who understand your journey. Comment the word here, armored, so I know you've made it to the end and are ready to experience this new phase with awareness, authority, and protection. Now get ready, because the next video will open your eyes even further. There's something behind loneliness that few understand, and when you find out, everything changes. The answer you've been waiting for may be in the video that's appearing on the screen right now. Go ahead and continue. You've already started, now go all the way.